I've got it going. It's going. Yeah, it is. We welcome you to the Lord's house. It's good to see each of you that's made your way here, and we want to continue with our Bible study tonight that we're doing on the life of Christ, and we certainly will be getting into that in a few minutes. Appreciate you all being here. Our number is lower tonight, and so we just appreciate you being here and ask you to pray for all those that are not able to be here for whatever reason. We know that the youth and the younger ones that have been ordinarily attending aren't here because of other things that the two teachers had to do, and so they canceled that and asked that the young people come and be part of this group, but so we just ask you to pray for those groups as they would come back together to next week. So we want to go to the Lord in prayer, ask Him to bless in this service tonight, and just bless in Sunday service also. We believe that the Lord has been blessing our church this summer and this fall, and we just need to continue praying for the church and praying for each other, praying for those that are not able to be here because of the virus, those that have been affected with that, and those that are affected because of their age, their health, other reasons that they cannot be in church and want to be. We appreciate these guys that are online with us almost every week, twice, and ask that you guys be praying also, and ask that those on Facebook, if you have a prayer request, to please mention that, and we certainly will remember it and get it on calling post. Remember to, if you can share those things, and it spreads it out so some other folks can see it, so don't forget to do that. But the main thing is to post any prayer request or any comments that you have that would be helpful in the service. So just remember that. I will go ahead and mention that this microphone, we've got it charging as we use it. Hopefully the sound is going through as it should be, and it was not. This was charged perfectly. The receiver was, and everything, and the phone. So, but the microphone itself was left here at the church, and so hopefully it'll be okay as it is plugged up there and charging as we use it. We want to remember still again Evie Bear. She lost her sister, and we ask you to pray for her and lift her up. And if you have an opportunity to give her a call, I know she would appreciate it. Remember Jenny Tedder, we met her uptown I guess in one of the stores the other day, and she said she was doing a lot better and feeling good about the surgery, and she was walking on a cane, and said that she would be in church, had meant to be in church this past Sunday, and then decided maybe she was 1 week early when she got up that morning, and so she's tried to be with us this coming week. But continue to pray for Jenny. A fellow named Robert Gilbert, that used to live down in our community, lives out in the Fleetwood area now. He had a 31-year-old daughter that passed away down in Wilkes County, and just remember that family. Understand that there was something like a blocked bowel, and they did surgery, and she never really recovered from that, as kind of the story that Robert mentioned. And so just pray for the whole family and lift them up. And Josh's dad is be part of the funeral on Saturday as far as speaking, so remember him and the other minister also. Any other prayer request? Pete, okay. Just remember that request. How is he doing, Sandy? That's good. Well, let's remember him. I know he's had a couple other, people requesting for him, and so let's remember him, lift him up in prayer. Um, who's that? Okay. Remember that request. Okay. All right. Brenda Rourke, Daryl's sister, and so we pray that treatment today took care of that spot. Yeah. Any other requests? Amazing, and really remember Chloe and Tommy. So that's great. I think we saw an announcement that Alex and Kristen Addison are expecting a girl. So it's praise, and we need to pray for them. A boy? Is it a boy? Well, I can't read. That B looks like a G, I guess. They're good, expecting a baby. that 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 covers it. Any other requests, guys? We do appreciate you prayer requests, and just pray for each other, pray for the church, and it's a tough time with a lot of places. All the push right now is that so many church events and things like that are what are causing and big events around church activities, and others are causing some of the big outbreaks. And so I don't know, the numbers in North Carolina are keeping going up, and other places also. So we'll just have to pray that virus goes away. But it's a time when we could see something happen like happened last spring also. So just don't want that to happen, but it could happen. Yeah. Yeah, Donna, I think Kendra's mother is supposed to have one in about 2 weeks or so, knee replacement, and then Tim, he of course he's suffering with so much pain and everything because of what's happening with his body right now, and then Mike has November 17th as the date for his next knee replacement. So remember those three. Okay, just remember that. Anybody uplifted hand? Okay. Bobby, will you lead us? appreciate the prayer, and you all continue in prayer for those that have been mentioned and others that we know that are on the prayer list that have been mentioned lately, and just lift them up. I know probably everyone was not mentioned. I know that, and it's hard sometimes to remember all of them. And so, Teresa, we forgot our daughter-in-law who has been fighting pneumonia, and she had and has been out of work for 3 days. And so we ask you to remember her. We, in the way of announcements, I think we will try to get the deacons together probably next Monday, Tuesday, something like that if we can, and try to have a meeting and try to have a business meeting next week. That we haven't been able to do that, but we'll try to do that, and we'll get it announced and try to get some things done that we need to get done with those 2 meetings. So for the next couple of months, kind of a we usually have a Thanksgiving meal and other things happening in November, and then in Christmas, the month of December is Christmas and things like that. And I don't think we should totally curtail Christmas services or by any means like that. But certainly, if the virus continues, it's going to change the way we do some things. Have to, I think. So. At any rate, be praying about that, and we'll talk about that as far as in those 2 meetings and any other business that we have. Be praying for, and we failed to mention her, Louise Bear has a granddaughter, and she had to have fairly major surgery recently, and she doesn't have insurance. And in order to have the insurance, she was required to go and get $7,000, and she had to borrow it. And so talking with Louise, I thought that maybe the church might make some donation towards helping her pay that. So be praying about that, and we'll see what we can do or what you want to do. So just be in prayer for that. And then not this coming Saturday, but the next Saturday, the 31st, the church is doing a trunk or treat, and any and all that want to participate can. If you want to come and open the trunk up and have treats there for people as they go by, that would be great. If the way you want to participate is to make a donation of money or buy candy, that can be done also. And I think some people are doing that. And so just do whatever you want to do to be part of that. Any other announcements? Okay. Turn to chapter 2 of the book of John. We are studying the life of Jesus, and as you look at the life of Jesus, there are events that happened in his life that when you look at them, and you read Matthew, and then you read Luke, and then you read you've read Mark, and then you read John, and you're going, well, this must have happened after this, or this must have, and the timing sometimes is off. But when you look at a chronology of the date when it happened and how it happened, what happened next, John mentions a couple of things that really aren't mentioned in in some of the other books, and one of them is the first miracle Jesus did. And we're going to talk about that first miracle just a little bit, and then talk about some other things also. That first miracle is found in John chapter 2. It's where Jesus turned water into wine, and it's not found in either one of the other 3 books. It's this story is not there. You don't find the story of this wedding in Matthew, Mark, or Luke. And so those three either felt like that it was not necessary to put in there, or maybe they weren't present at it, because it happened right around the time that Jesus was calling the disciples to come and be with him. And so it's very possible that they were not there. Now, verse 2 tells us that the disciples. It does. We don't know who that refers to, but it tells us that the disciples were there. Was it all 12? Was it 2, 3, 4, 5 of them? We really don't know. It's very possible that it was all, and that Matthew and Luke Matthew just chose to leave it out. Of course, Mark and Luke would not have been there because they were not present at that time with Jesus. So anyway, Mark being the scribe to Peter, and Luke being the physician that started writing and traveled with Paul so much. So those two would not have been at this wedding. Let's read those first 11 verses there, and we'll talk about it just a little. And it says, on the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, They have no wine. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. Jesus saith unto the servants, Whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus saith unto them, Fill the water pots with water. And they filled him up to the brim. And he saith unto them, Draw out now, and bear it to the governor of the feast. And they bare it. And when the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and saith unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worst, but thou hast kept the good wine until now. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. So we look at this story of the first miracle, and so what we have is a situation where we wonder if what the situation was, whether Jesus was not, through God and through the Holy Spirit, given the power to do miracles prior to his starting his ministry. Maybe that was the case, or maybe when that Holy Spirit descended on him when he was baptized, then the Spirit gave him there the power to do the miracles. It's very possible that that's the way this worked. But he had no recorded miracles done until this time, and he started his ministry when he was about 30 years old. Turn to Luke, I believe it's chapter 3, verse 1. Might be, no, it's verse 23. And John's baptism of Jesus is recorded in John chapter 3, verses 21, 22. And it says, Now when the people were baptized, it came to pass that Jesus also being baptized and praying, the heaven was opened, and the Holy Ghost descended on him in a bodily shape like a dove upon him. And a voice from heaven came, which said, Thou art my beloved Son, in thee am I well pleased. And then verse 23 says, And Jesus himself began to be about 39 years of age, being, as it was, the son of Joseph. And then it goes into a genealogy that goes from there. And it says that so he was about 30 years old when he became the when he started his ministry. So when we go back to look at this chapter 2 and verse 1, and he's going out and doing this first miracle, it's the first thing that he did after being baptized, and it's the first miracle he did. And you wonder how and why this was chosen, and maybe to show Jesus has the power that he does over nature and over a lot of things. I want you to look at this, and it says, and there was a marriage in Cana, and the mother of Jesus was there. So she went, and she's mentioned first. Notice it doesn't say Mary, it says the mother of Jesus. And if you look at this whole story, you never see the word Mary there. It talks about the mother of Jesus, his mother, that as far as that. And it says both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. Now, who was getting married? We see a mention of a bridegroom, but it doesn't say a name. We don't see a mention of a bride. Again, we go back to the reasons for that, and the reasons for that is that what would happen in a marriage in these days is that the father would say to somebody who was in charge of the service, and that mentions the governor of the feast down there, the governor of the wedding, say to that person, okay, get everything ready for a food, send out all the invitations, and bring people in, and set this up. Now that wedding feast might be one day, it might be 2 days, it might be 5 days. How would you like that, young newlyweds? 5-day feast. You see, only Luke would get to go. Stephanie would be at home, and she'd have to sit there until the end of it, and then she would be called, and they would actually have the wedding. So that's the way a marriage worked in those days. And so in this case, what's happening is that they've got the party started, they've got the food out, the wine out, and everybody is having a good time, and Jesus' mother is there. Is it possible this was a relative of Jesus some way through family? Is it possible that it was one of the disciples' relatives? We don't know the connection that made it possible that Jesus would be invited or that he would attend this wedding. We don't know the connection, but there would have to be some connection. A friend, he might have been somebody he had grown up with. He'd been a carpenter for several years. We know that he was a carpenter, and so maybe it was somebody he worked with or worked for. We don't know who the man was, or and who the bridegroom was. Maybe just somebody Jesus grew up with. We don't know. So anyway, and in verse 2 again, we see the disciples there, and they're looking and seeing. Going back to his mother being there, is it possible, and it is possible, I think, that some of his brothers and sisters might be there also. It's unlikely his mother came by herself to this. So you have this wedding, and you have this crowd of people there, and they're having a good time, and they're celebrating a marriage that's going to happen in a few days. So that's where we're at. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. So obviously they've been having this party for a while, and they've got those 6 pots sitting out there, and they've went through at least some of those, maybe the whole thing, and they've drunk that. And now the feast is still scheduled to go on. And so Jesus' mother knows this is happening. She has some way enough of a connection to where she feels responsible enough to go to Jesus and say to him, they have no wine. They don't have, the wine's not there for them to drink. Now, very carefully here, I will say that there's two things that we don't understand in our day and time. First is that this is really wine, and people did drink it, and that this wine that is there and that Jesus made is wine that we would call an alcoholic beverage in our day. But the thing is that it was against Jewish tradition and against Jewish law for you to get drunk. And so it's unlikely that was happening. They're having a good time, they're having a feast, but the fact that the wine's gone indicates a large crowd more than a bunch of large drinkers. So think of it in that way. So, and then Jesus' answer is a little bit on the side of one of those things that you don't quite understand why he said. It's harsh. If your mother says to you, they have no wine, she obviously knows he can do something about it. But, look at his response. It's, woman, what have I got to do with you? Mine hour is not yet come. This is not, she says to him, Jesus, they don't have any wine. It's you can do something about this. It's time for you to start doing miracles. And that's what she's saying. And Jesus says, hey, what have I got to do with you saying this? What do you mean? It's not my time to start making miracles, to start doing things. And you look at the story, it's at a wedding. There's nobody sick or hurting. We look at the miracles of Jesus. We always go to the ones where he raised somebody from the dead, or where he healed somebody, or whether he healed a leper, or he cast devils out. We always go to those miracles and we look at that. But the miracle of making wine at a wedding, that's the first one. What do y'all think about that? Yeah.
I almost felt like she had an urge from God, whatever that it was not. Because it was such kind of unrealistic to ask why.
You think that maybe she was pushing him a little bit to show who he was and what he could do, in the sense of, hey, it's time for you to do what God sent you. Because the Bible is very clear. Mary knew from the start, she kept these things in her heart and pondered them, the Bible says in Luke, and that she knew what he could do, what he was going to do, and what was going to happen to him. So I wonder if this is all right, Jesus, it's time to go ahead. And this is the perfect time. You can do this. No, I don't. And that's one of the things that you look at it down there at the bottom. It says that only in verse 9, if you look at verse 9, it says that when the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made and knew not what it was, but the servants that knew, and the governor of the feast called the bridegroom. See, so the only ones that really knew were the ones that filled the pots up with water, and then Jesus said, take that, draw out some of that and take it in there. Well, see, that's another thing. Let's talk about this just a little more. His mother said to the servants, whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. That has been that line right there, that one sentence in that verse has probably been the center of more sermons than about any other line in this whole chapter, or perhaps in this early part of the book, because it says to us that whatever Jesus says to us, whatever we hear the Spirit say to us, whatever we hear and understand that we should do it. You know, if we have an unction from the Spirit of God or from reading the Bible that says do this, we should do it. And that's what she's saying to them. Whatever Jesus says to you, you do that. It's not a matter of if he says this, do it, or if he says this, do it, but whatever he says, do it. And so, like I said, this one line has been the text for many sermons over the years. And it says, then it describes what was going to happen and where the wine was going to be. 6 water pots of stone, verse 6, after the manner of purifying of Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. And that firkins is a measurement of how many gallons or how much water is in one of those pots. And it says, Jesus saith unto them, fill the water pots with water. They filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, draw out now and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bear it. What did he do to do the miracle? He just told them to put the water in the pot. That's it. And when it came out, it was wine. And the servants saw this, but look at the power he has. I mean, think about that. You can take water and it becomes wine. See, water has nothing to do with wine. Wine is made from grape juice. So he changed one physical thing, H2O, to grape juice, and didn't say anything, didn't touch it, didn't do anything. That shows a tremendous power, and it's something I think that makes this miracle really special. And it's, that last line up there, his disciples believed on him. I believe this was for them. They had not seen him do a miracle. They had not seen him do anything that remotely looked like a miracle. This was the first one, and it was for their eyes and their eyes only. They saw it. The servants saw it, but the rest of the people at the feast didn't. You're right, Bobby. That's exactly the case. But just think of that. Pour water in there, and then when you take a dipper and put in it, it comes out grape juice that's fermented. That's a miracle, a great miracle. That's almost as much a miracle as telling somebody that they have leprosy that they don't have leprosy. When you think about the physical processes, the scientific processes involved, it's almost as much a miracle. What do y'all think?
Well, like you say, he didn't do anything. He didn't speak. That reminds me of this verse in Ephesians 3:20. One of my favorite verses. It says, "Now to him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us." So he was just thinking it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
How powerful he is.
Anyone else? And it is a demonstration of great power that he had and used. Now, if you were watching this, you were one of the servants, what would you have expected him to do? Would there be in this great flash of light? He'd have touched the thing and prayed over it. What would he, you would have expected something, But all it was is pour the water in, dip it out. It's fine. It's wine. And that's a blessing. And Mary knew that something was going to happen. Whatever he said to do, just do it. And they did, and the miracle was done, which is a great lesson for us. You know, whatever he says to do, do it. So, and then his statement to them was, there was no hesitation. There was no, maybe it worked. There was nothing like that. He said, you know, hey, just take some of that wine out and take it in there to the governor of the feast. Let him taste it. I mean, you know, if usually if a person does something, they're a little bit hesitant about somebody coming and examining it and looking at it. Jesus shows no hesitation. He knew exactly what had happened. Just by thinking it, just by wanting it done, it was done. You know, we're reminded that the Bible says that when the world was created, it was spoken into existence, and it was created. The word bara, B-A-R-A, and that word bara is there was nothing, and he made something out of nothing. That created. That word means that. And here Jesus takes water and he makes wine. I mean, it's almost the same kind of process when you think about it. And so, and they bear it in. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was. This guy tasted of it, and he didn't know where it came from. See, he was the one that was in charge. He had brought and put in place all the food, all the tables, all the guests, all the wine. And they brought it to him and said, here, taste this. And he didn't know where. He said he didn't know where it was, what it was, or where it came from. He had no clue. But you know, he said, but the servants knew. The governor of the feast called the bridegroom. Now, again, you have to know what a Jewish wedding is. The Jewish wedding, it was all about the bridegroom. It was not about the bride. It's all about the bridegroom. That's a picture of Christ and the bride as it's presented in the book of Revelation. The church is the bride of Christ, and the center of the whole thing is Christ, the bridegroom, not the bride. And so the Jewish wedding is a complete picture of that relationship. That's what you have. So this bridegroom was called, as he was the center of everything, and they said to him, you know, everybody sets out the good wine at the start because the first taste you see what does that wine taste like, and then after you get several tastes in your mouth or get just a little giddy from it, if it doesn't taste quite as good, it's okay. So every man at the beginning set forth good wine. When men have drunk well, then that which is worse, but you've kept the best till last. The wine that was made was better than any wine that had been served at that point. Now, look at verse 9 again. And I want you to tell me if it reminds you of anything. When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom. So you have the ruler of the feast and the bridegroom. And they taste the wine. They don't know where it came from. They don't know anything about it. But who does? The servants. The servants. In almost every story you see about Jesus, that which is less in status, shepherds in the story of the birth, fishermen and gathering disciples and apostles, the servants in this first miracle. You can think of many different things that Jesus does, and that person of poor status, of lower class status, is elevated to have more knowledge or to know more about Jesus or to have a chance to know more about Jesus than some of the others. We see that in many cases in the story of Jesus. Can you think of any other examples? The Samaritan woman, that one of the hated people. The feeding of the 5,000, these people had followed him out there, and they didn't have food. Yeah. Yeah. Then the man at the well that had laid there and couldn't get into the water. And of all the people that were around there, Jesus picked that one man. So you do have this kind of a tendency in that story, and the way that Jesus reached out to people was not always through the richest, the smartest, the best. Those people didn't seem to listen to him as much as others. And when we see him go into the Sermon on the Mount, he talks about the poor and others, and so we see that happening. Now, the reason I say that this happened to strengthen and lift the apostles is that last verse. And it says, "This beginning of miracles did Jesus of Cana in Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and the disciples believed on him." So because of this miracle, the disciples saw who he was, what his power was, and what he could do. And so they had an inkling of what he was capable of doing because of the power that he showed here. And it's like, peace, be still on a boat and the storm goes down. It's that kind of a miracle where nature is controlled, where nature is changed. And so that's part of this. Any comments or discussion on this as far as that's concerned? On the whole story? Anything you've seen that we haven't mentioned? Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking, well, if it was as much as 165 gallons of wine, I mean that's a huge amount. I mean you're trying to serve a lot of people. And so, I mean, this may have been maybe the last day or two or three, or it may have been the only day that Jesus was there, because that's what happened. First day this group came in, the second day some of that group, and others may have, so all week long that happened. That bridegroom didn't call this party and didn't come out to call this party until his father had built a house for him, usually in his father's house. And the bride then did not show up until the end. And there was a wedding that took place at the end of all this. And then the bridegroom and the bride left and went to that house, but the party continued. And so it could go on many days, really, depending on wealth, depending on, what the father of the bridegroom wanted to have happen.
I'm puzzled why he referred to her as woman.
Yeah.
It almost sounds disrespectful, and
When you look at this, I don't know if it's Jesus so much as it is John's writing, and maybe John elevating Jesus and putting Mary down, because not putting her down, but lowering her importance maybe in this story. You see him call her the mother of Jesus, being there, his mother, and then woman.
He also referred to her that way when he was on the cross.
Yeah, he did.
John, but then John was there.
Son. Yeah.
Could be the way John was referenced.
I think the reason that he said woman, what I think is that he was saying to her, when he said that, woman, what have I to do with thee? He was saying, why in the world do you think I should do this? Why in the world do you think this is necessary at this location? Why in the world should I do this? And he was, with the word woman, saying, you have no more influence over me than anybody else, but that might not be right. But then you have also the fact that she asked, she honored that, he honored that, honor thy father and mother. He honored her request. If anybody else had asked him, would he have done it? I don't know.
Could it be that people wouldn't worship the mother instead of Jesus?
Well, I wonder sometimes if some of the writing that John did and that's here, it might have been John saying, since so many people are trying to worship the mother of Jesus, let's make her less important and raise Jesus up. So he didn't even put her name in here. I think that's very much a possibility, Josh. Well, yeah, I mean, it's early on, it started. And the Catholics do. I mean, you pray to the mother of Jesus. You do not pray to Jesus in the Catholic Church. You pray to the mother of Jesus.
But at that point, he hadn't even made it known, even by doing this first miracle, he was starting his ministry, so he was just a regular Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I wanted to get this in before we come close to the end. There are stories in Catholic and other religions, in the Eastern Orthodox and some of the Egyptian churches that are Christian, that Jesus, while he was in Egypt as a little boy, would make clay doves, and then he would make them come to life and make them fly. So that they have these stories of miracles that he did before this, but it's, we see none of it in our Bible. It's in the writings that are associated with those different sects, those different types of religions, although they are Christian. So you see that those stories are out there. I don't think that's right. I think this was indeed Jesus' first miracle, and he had done none before this. There's I said Sunday, and it's something that bring up today just a little bit. I said Sunday that on Tuesday of the week of crucifixion, Jesus went into the temple and he cleansed the temple. Look at the next thing that John says Jesus did. Jesus cleanses the temple. So what most scholars believe is that Jesus did this twice, and that at the outset he went in and he cleansed the temple, and then on the week of crucifixion he did it again, and that John's story is as legitimate as the other stories found in, I think it's in Matthew and Luke, and that of him cleansing the temple during the week of crucifixion on the Tuesday of that week. So But then the next thing that John says he did was to talk with Nicodemus. And when you look at a chronology of the life of Jesus, most scholars put these two events immediately following the Jesus turning the wine into water. And then they go back to the other books of the Bible and they start saying this happened, other miracles, other parables, other teaching. Actually, after Nicodemus is basically the Sermon on the Mount in most people's chronology. So you see, what I'm really saying is that if you read the Bible as most of us do, you sit down and you read the book of Matthew, you read the book of Mark, you read the book of Luke, you read the book of John, and you got the life of Jesus. The chronology that's there is probably not the exact chronology because of the timing, because of the things. Some of them they're verified because they're in all four books. Some of them are verified because they're in three. Matthew comes closer. Yeah. Any other discussion? Anyway, we'll talk about Jesus cleansing the temple those two times next when we meet in 2 weeks. We have a business meeting next week, and we'll talk about the cleansing of the temple those two times in 2 weeks. Anybody have any questions or any discussion on this? I hope it's been something that helped you in some way, or I hope folks on Facebook enjoyed this. Anybody have a question or discussion? That's not right, is it? Business meeting in 2 weeks. That's right. Yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself. We might be able to get that deacons meeting in the following Sunday. Maybe nobody will be gone. Okay, guys, will you stand? Appreciate you being here, and I hope that the lesson tonight was in some way a blessing or encouraged your knowledge. You know, when we think of Jesus and his power and the fact that he's there for us and everything that he did here, you know, he's not, God's not a respecter of person. Jesus is not a respecter of person. People can expect the power he used in those days to be used today also. So we just need to pray and expect. Any comments, any discussion? Okay. April, will you dismiss us?